of speaking, Jesus came a long way to show us the face of God. It came a long way to make it possible for us to see what God is really like, for he came as the face of God here on earth. And when we look at Jesus, we can get a pretty good idea of what God is like. They call this the Epiphany. It's the name of this feast because it means the revelation or manifestation. The revelation or manifestation of God in the flesh here on earth. God is present to us as we walk the face of this earth. On our journey of life, there are several responses we could have to the presence of Christ here on earth. 3 of them are shown in the gospel. The first response is that of Herod. Now we might be thinking, yeah, well, that's got nothing to do with me. I wasn't a king and I got nothing going on here, but hold on, we'll listen here. Herod's response was one that it said he was troubled. He was afraid. Well, what was he afraid of? He heard the words, there is a newborn king of the Jews, another king, someone to take my power, someone to move me out, a threat to his sovereignty in that area. So he's afraid, and that fear turns into hatred. He goes after the one who might come after him, come and take his place. And so we know later on that he went and killed the innocents. He killed male children 2 years and younger. Later on in that gospel we hear about that. So there's a big threat, and he responds in hatred and anger. What's that got to do with us? Well, none of us are kings and queens so far as I know, but I would venture to say that at least from time to time, our power, our authority is challenged. It might be, for example, in our way of life. Someone might say, you're drinking too much alcohol. Oh, what do you know about it? And they get a little angry and strike out. Or you're eating too much, you're eating unhealthy. Or, you're spending too much time on the computer. And we just might strike out against them. It's none of your business, leave my life alone. Even though what they are speaking might be true. That's just an example of how people can kind of like invade our space, threaten us. Now, it's not saying we do this all the time, but I would venture a guess that you know what I'm talking about. You don't have to raise your hands, but does anybody in here have the little rule at their table when the large family gathers that there's no talking politics? Why is that? Because too often we don't listen to each other and we just fight about it. Maybe that's going on the larger level. I don't listen to what you say, and you don't listen to what I say. We just call each other names like fourth graders. All right, so that's the King Herod response. There's a second part of that response, and that is that King Herod says, well, you go. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, you go for me and let me know. The truth is that we got to go ourselves. We can't send somebody else to meet the Lord for us. You might say to somebody, I'm going to go on retreat. You want to come with me? No, you go and tell me about it. That's nice, but it doesn't work that way. We have to have our own experience of God, which leads us into the second response, and that's the response of the scribes and the priests in this gospel passage, because they are the ones who know. Herod calls them and said, where's the king supposed to be born? And they go, well, just flip open the scriptures and you'll see it says right here, it's you from Bethlehem, not the least among the lands of Judah, and from you shall come the ruler. They knew it all in their head. They could tell you the laws. They could quote scripture right and left. Great! But did they go? Of course not. You go. That's the part where the knowledge is in our head, but it doesn't enter into the rest of our body. It doesn't change us. I know that you know people, maybe some people in your own family that gave them a good education, good Catholic education, whether it's in Catholic schools or religious education. You brought them to church and they taught them how to pray and all that, and now they're gone. Well, why is that? Because the knowledge might be in their head, but it didn't get to their heart and hasn't affected how they live. But we don't need to look at them, do we? How about ourselves? Sometimes we're kind of that way. So here's a question. Is there anybody in here who could say that they're living some part of their life is not in accord with what Jesus teaches? Don't raise your hands. Raise your hand if you want. If everything in your life is totally in accord with the words and example of Jesus. That makes it unanimous in 3 masses. That means that we know how Jesus wants us to live, and at least in that aspect of our lives, we're not doing it. So that's like the priests and the scribes in today's gospel. That's one response to the presence of Jesus Christ, who is right here in our midst in many different ways, but we're not letting it affect our hearts. Knowledge is necessary, but it doesn't necessarily change our lives. Love and the experience of love changes our lives, doesn't it? That's the second response. The third response are the shepherds and the magi. The shepherds are Jews, but they're on the lowest level of the social ladder. They're kind of looked down upon and outcast. They spend time with the sheep and they smell stinky like the sheep. They're not very, but they go and seek the Lord. And magi are Gentiles, pagans. They're rich. They're traveling a long way. They're well looked up to. They're well educated. And they seek the Lord. Presumably, that's why we're here today. Is that right? We're here because we want to see the Lord and experience the presence of the Lord in our lives and to guide us as a light in the dark world, because this world is way too dark. We come here seeking Jesus. And in seeking Jesus, we seek that light, that it might shine in us first of all. Arise, shine forth, that first reading says, for your light has come. The glory of God is shining upon you. Though the darkness cover the earth, this light has come. If we know any darkness in our life, we do well to come here to look for the light and to let the word of the Lord speak to us as we receive him through the Eucharist and experience his presence in the people here. Our eyes shine forth, your light has come. It's meant to shine in our hearts if we accept it. And secondly, shine through us. As Paul said in that second reading, he says, to be good stewards of the gift we have received. That the light of Christ, the love of Christ, the mercy, compassion of Christ might shine through us for other people. Because we know that on this journey of life, we can have some good times which we can enjoy. And we suffer through some bad times. But with it, this feast of the Epiphany says that Christ is here with us the whole time. And if we don't come to him, if we don't experience that, it's not his fault. He's come a long way to show us God's love and light, word and wisdom. So, on our journey of life, don't we all need to seek the Lord and to return to him who has already come to us, that we might know that light in our darkness, and that we might be a light in the darkness as we live and love, as we follow Christ, as we live in the world, that others too might see.